Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. Today's a very special episode of Backlog Banter because this is the first episode recorded with both of us in college. So I'm in my dorm room. I've got this nice Blade Runner tapestry on the wall for my very lovely girlfriend. Tucker's got a bunch of nonsense because he lives in a fucking what would you describe it as, a trap house in Lincoln, Nebraska?
I didn't say anything. You started saying where. You said mansion earlier. I don't know. Look at this. Look at my glorious mansion. My bed is almost. I can touch my bed. I can almost touch both walls at once. This is my
I,
mansion.
I certainly couldn't do that. I got a
Okay,
nice
well,
fake plant in the
what
background.
we also did today was watch Nintendo's new Indie World presentation, which our
Unfortunately, we
channel
did.
our channel sort of we started on that, except for a couple of weird comic booky things. The Indie World presentation almost exactly 1 year ago was one of our first videos. It's true. I don't know if you believe it, but that's a fact.
No, that is true. And thinking back to that, I
That's
think
when
we got.
Ori was announced.
Yeah, and Risk of Rain 2. That was
Yeah.
back when Nintendo put games in Indie World showcases that could carry a show.
All right. Well, it sounds like one of us has our opinions set down.
Yes,
I
I
think
do.
I think we might as well talk about what was presented today.
I don't want to do that. I want you to tell me in one sentence or one figurative dance, whatever you'd prefer, how this presentation made you feel.
Honestly, I was very pleased with this.
I'm
There
sure you
were
were. I'm sure you were.
there was probably five plus games that I was genuinely like really interested in. This is pretty much exactly what I want an indie world presentation to be. It's a couple of ones that are mildly important, mildly big hitters like Torchlight and Subnautica and Hades. But other than that, it was a bunch of smaller things, a couple of which I had sort of heard of. But when they're just showing off basically entirely new games that all look high quality from indie studios that are passionate about what they're talking about, and that this is the way that these games are going to really get their ground. I think this is exactly what these presentations should be. I mean, and of course there was they had the relatively big announcements. So I was very happy with this.
Here's what I want to say to you as I gaze out my window, fucking in awe of the fact that I'm in a different location than I was last time I recorded. I don't I don't make any distinction in my mind between an indie game and a AAA game, in the sense that a good game should stand on its own merits and be interesting and compelling in its own regard. And there's something to be said for the fact that these indie games, they don't have the marketing push behind them to give them, the same level of exposure that AAA games do. That's totally fair. But for me, I think a compelling indie game, a game that stands out head and shoulders above the competition, is one that captures attention because by its own merits, it looks incredible. And when I watched that showcase today, I saw a lot of games that to me looked like things I'd seen before, looked like ideas that have been tried before. And there were games that I want to talk about that seemed wholly unique. And even though they came from very small teams that had no backing, teams I'd never heard of before, they still compelled me. I felt the biggest problem that the showcase had was that a lot of the games felt like they were here because they couldn't fit in a bigger presentation. And that's my problem. It's the same problem I have when I watch something like the PlayStation State of Play and we see Godfall. I feel about Godfall the way I feel about a lot of these indie games. Because for me, I just want a good game. When I see Godfall, I see, okay, this looks like maybe Platinum could have made it, or this looks like, another character action game. Oh, we've seen this before. I felt like for a lot of the games here, we'd seen it before. It's pulling on derivative concepts. It pulled on things I'd experienced in some facet or another, not holistically, but, oh, I've seen this art style. Oh, I've seen these mechanics. I know what you're getting at here. Oh, here's another roguelite. My problem is I think we're reaching a point of oversaturation in the indie market where to really stand out, you need to do something special beyond Nintendo just deeming, okay, you should be in this showcase. Because I think this showcase was full of games that if they were in a full direct, no one would pay any attention to. The new game from the Reigns people about like what is it called, poker, it's called Card Shark.
Yeah,
Card
Card
Shark would have
Shark.
stood out because it looked unique. I don't think a lot of these games look unique, and I'd be hard pressed to remember what a lot of them were.
Well, I don't agree at all.
Tell me
I
why.
Because this is, as I mean, honestly, as I was saying, this is what I want an indie direct to do. I'm not saying that all these games, like a lot of these games, I understand what you're saying. Like, oh, sure, I got vibes of another game looking at this, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because I think that these games, I disagree about the art style thing. Almost every time a new game came up, I thought, wow, that's a really cool art style. There's a bunch of them where I was like, I love the color palette for that. I love the character designs for that. And especially they even ended it with a sizzle reel, or ended it with a sizzle reel of a bunch of games. I was like, oh, I don't know why they didn't spend more time on this. I thought that it was really well paced. I thought most of these games could be games that ended up being pretty popular. I mean, I don't think we're gonna have a bunch of Celeste, Overcooked, success stories from this. But I think this is what an indie presentation should be. I think it should be more frequent. It should be games like this that, while they might not be the potential game of the year contenders, this is what the indie game market should be. It should be people who have a passion for making a game, coming up with their concept and delivering on it, and getting backing from Nintendo. I think that most of these games are going to be ones that I at least want to try. A lot of shadow drops, which was great.
Too many shadow drops.
I do think that might be true. I wish it would be like coming next week for a few of them, just to sort of spread them out, because the fact that they have a lot of them coming out on the same day, they're going to sort of cannibalize on each other. But there are a couple that of the shadow drop ones that I will probably pick up today, and some of the ones that I was hoping were going to be shadow dropped, but then they weren't. But yeah, I could go through and name a solid a good amount of these that I do really want to play. So I was very, very happy with this presentation, and I hope that if they have more presentations like this, that this is exactly what I want out of it.
I want to hammer onto that shadow drop point a little bit more, because this I think helped explain some of my skepticism surrounding this whole presentation. By dropping so many games here on an eShop that is categorically terrible for exposure, does not show to me a commitment to indie games. I really believe that a lot of the reason that indie games find so much success on the Switch is because there is a vacuum for larger scale AAA titles. And in that vacuum, indie games have filled the void, which I think is great. And it creates what I think is a platform that's a lot more unique and a lot more special than, the differences you'd see in hopping between an Xbox ecosystem, between that storefront and PlayStation storefront and Steam. But to see Nintendo be like, okay, yeah, how about 7 of you release your games today? I don't know if it's actually 7, but it was a lot. A lot of you just dropped your games on the eShop today. Nintendo does not have the infrastructure to support this. And these developers, I think, are putting out games that, again, not to take away from the passion of them, because I think one of the most compelling parts of a presentation like this, I mean, also, God forbid Nintendo sent anyone a fucking microphone, but the passion.
The card shark guy, that was a travesty.
But the passion is great to see, but you got to back the passion up with some kind of actual, infrastructure to support these games. I don't think Nintendo's laying down that foundation, and I don't think that the games released today, other than DS walking the mountain game,
a short hike. The difference for that, I think, a lot of the ones that are also shut up this is a game that has already existed. Is one I heard of. So.
Yeah, but it also, by its own merit, has some kind of cachet by the fact that it looks unique and it has unique mechanics. Mm-hmm. And I just really, I fundamentally reject the idea that the indie scene is still as diverse as it used to be. And I think that this presentation was a great way that we saw, oh, here's some more puzzle platformers, and here is another roguelite. So I'm getting a little bit tired of the homogeny, but at the same time, I think it makes a game like a Short Hike Stick Out or Card Shark, or some of these other games that I think were shown off today that seem compelling in a unique way.
Mm-hmm. Well, is there any particular game that you want to discuss? I'm sorry, I'm sort of distracted. I have the Indie World Showcase on 2x speed, and I'm going through it just to refresh myself, because I didn't take notes.
Frankly, I think I was compelled by a Short Hike in particular. I'm glad you reminded me of the name, because I couldn't remember something about walking or hiking or going on an adventure.
Yeah.
That just seems so out of the mold that I'm really compelled to try it. I've heard great things when it was released on Itch. I believe it came out on Itch.io prior to here. I think that was its native
I don't even know what that is.
It was a real indie fan now. But I'm definitely excited to check that one out. And I'll be putting probably $10 into the eShop to grab that one. I don't think it's probably going to be too expensive. That's the one that really stood out to me. Frankly, nothing else really spoke to me in any material way. Not even the Goose Game multiplayer, I think, was a disappointing way to end the showcase. And I thought Hades does not feel nearly as fresh or original as Supergiant's other games. And the middle just kind of felt like whatever.
Okay, I can agree with Hades not feeling like it wasn't a very impactful way to open the showcase. That is a game that was successful. Supergiant is a studio that people recognize, so I think that's what they were trying to bank on through this, because they
Sure.
clearly they didn't have a an Ori or something to lean on. But I think ending it with Goose Game, having that honk be sort of an iconic, essentially an iconic thing that people can be like, oh god, it's Goose Game, and the idea that they're doing a free update, I think that's great. I mean, that's kind of what I want a big last indie announcement to be. I mean, a Cadence of Hyrule is something that's can't be expected all the time. So for something like this, having it be a game that was wildly popular, that this is a cool update for it. I wish that maybe it was sort of a bigger DLC that had like a new area or something like that. But I think that having a multiplayer is great, and I was very happy when it was sort of like a honk. I was like, oh well, they're doing one last thing, and it's Goose Game. That's awesome.
My problem with the Goose Game stuff is that game's not designed for co-op. It reminds me a lot of when Captain Toad got co-op post-release.
Well,
Co-op game design is so specific. That is a unique design consideration. And I think shoehorning it in, we'll see if it ends up being fun, but at the same time, that doesn't feel like a very deliberate choice to me.
I I disagree only on one front, because that game is designed for someone who's playing it like a puzzle game to, yes, be stealthy, to be, doing whatever. Like, the game is designed in that way. But I think the
Yes.
way that the game became as popular as it is, and the reason it does feel so unique, is because you can either play it that way or you can just fuck around and have a great time. I put my mom on that game, playing that game about a week ago, and she had almost never played a video game before. I had to teach her what a fucking bumper was, or a trigger to like do the lean down or whatever. And she just played that game and laughed her ass off messing with the gardener, and she never got past the first stage. But that game is popular because of the comedic value and the funniness that comes out of just being a fucking goose, and the fact that you can have a friend and grab things together and mess with the people together. I think that's what they're going for. They're not going for it being a fantastically designed experience, but it's definitely one that you can have a lot of fun in. And especially now that you have a friend, you can mess around in it. I think that's what they're going for, and I think it will be pretty popular.
We'll see. I mean, I'm willing to give it a shot because I really do like Entitled Goose Game.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the better indie games on Switch, and one certainly in my top 40 indie games. Probably my top 20. I really liked it. That was a fucking arbitrary number that I just picked.
Yeah.
Um, but what I want to hear, I want to hear from you. I want to hear the games that excited you, because I feel like you're more passionate about what was shown off today.
Yeah, okay, so Spirit Fair, that's one that I haven't seen since the I think 2018 Xbox showcase, where it felt very out of place. But I think having it as a Switch game is going to be fantastic. I really like the idea of having it be an adventure game mixed with base building and characters, and it looks like there's probably some light Metroidvania stuff where you're getting upgrades and stuff, and I'm very into that. I cannot wait for that game. It's very interesting that they took so long to sort of talk about it again. And that original trailer in this, where it was sort of just like a cinematic thing, wasn't the best way to show it. But I think that the fact that they turned right around and did gameplay and explained exactly what the game was, I thought that was a good showcase, and I can't wait to play that game.
I think that was
Can't,
definitely one of the more unique games of the show.
yeah,
For my personal taste, I'm just not big into base building resource management, but I really do like its art style. I love all those animal companions.
yeah.
And the idea of shepherding them to the afterlife is really unique.
Oh, that is when the shadow drops. Sorry, just
Yes. See that again, perfect example of why there are too many coming out. Because a
yeah.
game like that, which I think was one of the best games shown, getting lost in the shuffle of other things, I don't think is I was not too impressed by the handling of that. But the game itself does look pretty cool.
Hades is another game that I want to try eventually. I'm a very big fan of Bastion, and I own Transistor, even though I haven't played it yet.
Transistor is very good.
But I do want to play that. And I do want to give Hades a try. I heard a lot of good things about it when it came out. So we jump from Hades. There was a internet game, a 90s internet game, which is weird to put on Switch. Might be good in handheld, but it seems like a game I'd rather play on Steam if I'm going to play it. I like that kind of style of game where they're trying to create a new interface style, like Papers, Please, or Her Story or something like that. I think that could be very cool. Hypnospace Odyssey, or Hypnospace Outlaw.
This is one of the first ones where I started to feel, okay, I feel like I've been here before. With games like that, I think are more tailored to their device, being a normal lost phone, something like that. Or what was the one about your wife is a refugee and she's trying to immigrate, and you get texts from her.
Yeah, yeah.
I forget what that game is called. It's supposed to be very good. And there was game Emily is Away. Emily is Away 2. This was for me where I started to feel, okay, not only does this game feel like it's treading territory that I think we've explored before, but it doesn't feel suited for this machine.
Yeah, I comment on that, yeah. Okay, so we talked about Spiritfarer. Next up is Garden Story, which I was very excited for. I mean, I love this style. The color palette looks amazing. The character designs. I think the idea of rebuilding your base, having a little bit of exploration, characters you can talk to. I cannot wait for that game. And that was the game that I saw, and I was like, I really hope this is Shadow Drop because I want to play this right fucking now. But unfortunately, it's 2021 and nothing we can do about that. But that's the game I'm going to put on my list, and I will get that day one. Cannot wait to play that one.
That's another one where I was just feeling that homogeneity again. It felt like a mishmash of elements I'd seen before. It felt like a familiar art style. That was one that I see the appeal of, but just not what I'm looking for out of this scene.
Mm-hmm. Next up, Subnautica, which is a pretty big announcement. I'm just surprised it took so long to get this on there. That game looks like piss on the Switch. Holy crap, it looks bad.
Yeah, you froze, but now you're back. But you pinged back in on what I wanted to comment on.
Piss?
You pinged back in on the fact that this is a deep problem.
Hi, the thing cut out again. What's up?
Yes.
Okay, repeat what you were going to say. I think we're good now.
It looks bad.
Yeah, it looks bad. It looks really bad. I mean, Subnautica is a popular game. I've always wanted to try it. I played a Subnautica clone on Steam a couple of years ago, and I really enjoyed that. I can't remember what it's called at this point. But that's a game I've always wanted to try. I'm not going to play on Switch. I'll get it on Steam for fucking $3 when it's on sale, if anything. I didn't know Subnautica Sub-Zero even existed, or Blue Zero, whatever.
That's very interesting. That's a new announcement.
It is a new announcement?
I thought it was, but I doubt it. I think they would have made a bigger deal if it was.
Okay.
Again, that felt like a mismatch between platform and game.
Maybe, you mean just because of the visuals or what?
I think partially because of the visuals. I think that's the sort of game that thrives better on Steam.
Well, it did.
Sure, and I understand wanting to expand out, but I think that's just a bad look for the game. I think coming out and being that visually poor that many years after release.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it'll find an audience. I hope it does find an audience, but for me, it's
yeah, no. It's a weird announcement. I think so. I have a list that I made a couple of years ago, actually, of games that I expected to see on the Switch eventually, and it was like before Captain Toad was announced. It was Captain Toad. It was Borderlands, and I think I had Subnautica on there. And I'm very surprised that it took that long for them to put the game on the Switch. I feel like it probably would have been a bigger announcement if it was closer to the Switch's launch, because that's a game that people do like, and it has a good amount of content. So very strange. Let's see, what else is there? Raji looked cool. I liked some of the art style, but I don't think the gameplay looked like something I was super into.
That was another one that, from a lore perspective, from the perspective of what they wanted to accomplish, I really liked. I think leaning into Indian history is very cool.
Yeah,
I especially like when we see a team from a location that you don't get a lot of games out of.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one that I really appreciate Nintendo highlighting. At the same time, though, I don't think it looks very fun to play, unfortunately. Yeah. Was this another Shadow Drop? I think it was.
Could have been. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, see...
That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. If that had been like one of two Shadow Drops, that would have been a bigger deal, and I feel like it would have probably gotten more attention, but unfortunately, that's not the case. But right after that, we have Bear and Breakfast, which I think, not my style of game in terms of building up the bed and breakfast, but I think the art style looks great. It's clever and creative, and it will certainly find an audience, and I'm sure it'll be fun when it comes out, but it's not one that I plan to pick up.
Based on the merits alone of the name Bear and Breakfast, I like it. I would never play it, but I like the title quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. After that is a short hike in Card Shark, which we've already talked about. Both of those are very cool. The concept of Card Shark, of being the gameplay being around you cheating, I think that'll be fantastic. I really can't wait to try that game.
I don't understand how you play it yet, but that makes me even more compelled to figure it out.
Yeah.
And developers publishing it, which immediately is...
Is that true?
Yeah. It was in the little card at the corner. That is, for me, immediately a big a big point of praise. The fact that the developer would pick up a project like that, and it's from the people that made Reigns, I'm very confident about that game.
Was not familiar with Reigns. I don't know what that is.
I'm not familiar with it either on the name recognition.
Yeah.
But that game was big on mobile. It's got a couple different iterations, I believe, including a Game of Thrones one. It's pretty well received. But Card Shark and a Short Hike were certainly my games of the show.
Yeah. After that, we had Torchlight 3, which is a very interesting one because I know the Torchlight series is pretty popular. But it kind of just looks like a different version of Diablo with like a Dota art style. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's always what Torchlight has been.
Yeah, and apparently this game came out last month or 2 months ago on Steam, and it didn't review well. So I guess they're just trying to expand their user base and hopefully make their money back. But I hadn't heard of that. So
well, that was one of my questions. I didn't know if this game existed already.
I looked it up.
Huh.
All right. After that, Manifold Garden. That game got me fucking going. I cannot wait to play that. I also want to play Superliminal. I've really got it's kind of got the same concept on it, but it's a lot more larger in scale, and instead of just like making things bigger and smaller, but it's got like the spinning off in different directions deal. This game looks fantastic, and I cannot wait to try that. It's got the simplistic art style and the interesting puzzles and stuff. That is my stuff, and that is later today too. Oh hell yeah!
I think that game, I believe, was an Apple Arcade title previously.
Oh, really?
I'm gonna send you to the command center to look up, see if that's true. If it is, I do like the way that more, even if it's not, it's been really nice to see more of those Apple Arcade titles head to Switch. Whether we're talking Oceanhorn or what are some of the other ones? Spaceland, Dodo Peak, things like that. The way that Apple Arcade indie games are moving over to Switch, I think it's really compelling.
Yeah.
And this game did look cool. Again, I did feel notes of Superliminal in there, and even some.
Although I think those games were probably developed side by side, so I don't think it's necessarily a fair comparison. I do think that it kind of got short shrift. It actually came out last year, yeah. So it came out before Superliminal, so I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that like
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's
tit
like
for tat, if you will.
Yeah,
it's not how you use that phrase.
I don't think so. Next up is the game that I was personally most confused / disappointed about. Was Soulflame, which is just a game where your character is way too fucking small and the art style is kind of lame. Yeah, not a good show.
That was fairly emblematic of my disappointment with the showcase as a whole.
I mean, for me, that and to some degree Torchlight, but that's because that has an established name to it. It's a little different. But that was really the only one where I'm feeling the what you're saying about games feeling derivative, things like that. I was saying I've been excited for almost all of these. Looking back, actually, most of these I'm pretty excited for. Evergate, not Soulflame. It just said Soulflame on the thing. It's called Evergate. But that game did not fucking tickle my fancy. In fact, it did the opposite of that. It poked my fancy and it hurt.
At the very beginning, I thought that was Ori 2. From that really close up, that art style looked a little bit Ori to me. But then it ended up just being another puzzle platformer.
Yeah.
With the camera way too far out and environments that did not look particularly compelling.
Yeah. And that was sort of the way they ended the main meat of the presentation, which I thought was not a great choice. But I think they're probably maybe they have a little more confidence in that game than I think I do. But then we got into the sizzle reel, which I thought got some pretty cool stuff in it. Haven is a game that I remember seeing that I think looks pretty interesting. Definitely one I want to try.
There was good stuff in that sizzle reel, I will say. Goner 2 was one that stood out to me. Goner. The first Goner is a really great little game that launched back the first summer of the Switch's life.
Yep.
So I picked it up then, and I really loved it. So I am excited for Goner 2. That's an art style that I think is just unparalleled. Mm-hmm. It looks like, did you ever have those books? There's like the page was black, and you had a little fucking wooden pencil you could scrape away and be color underneath.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
That
game looked really good. And Team 17 had a game in there, which I
Going Under.
Yeah, Going Under.
I cannot tell what that game is from the gameplay, but I like the art style a lot. It looks frenetic and fast-paced and bouncy.
That's a good word. That's a buzzword. That's a gaming buzzword.
Yes. And as I'm a gamer and I'm buzzing, that is what happened. Yes. Okay. Also, the Red Lantern. That is an interesting one to me because I remember seeing that game in an Indie World presentation in like 2018 or something like that. No?
Clear the floor, clear the field, clear the field. Put your helmet on, duck and cover. I want to talk to you about this game for a second. I saw this game at PAX. I actually forget the woman's name, unfortunately, but I talked to one of the developers about it. I can't wait for this. This is one of the games that compelled me the most. I was hoping we'd get a hard release date here because it has been floating around for a while.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if this game was impacted by COVID because they are a smaller team, and I think they were targeting a more concrete time when I saw it at PAX. It seemed like it was coming together nicely. But this is a wonderful game that I think was done a disservice by the way it was showcased. It's a really interesting roguelite that combines more narrative elements, and there's a lot of player agency and choice in the way your narrative unfolds, which I think is a really interesting structure for a roguelike. And I love the art style. There's all kinds of sled dogs you can choose from. You can touch them, you can pet them, you can feed them. I think you should check this game out when it launches. I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, it's definitely a game I was very excited for. When I think the reason that they sort of relegated it to this sizzle reel is because it already did have a pretty meaty section of an indie presentation a while ago. So I think they wanted to give the floor to some other games, which is perfectly reasonable. But the fact that they reminded me that it A, hasn't come out yet, and B, is coming out, I think was great. I'm excited for that game as well.
You just said two things that I think are really important and really underscore my thoughts about the show. One, this is a game that could stand out anywhere. You put this in a regular Nintendo Direct, because it was initially in a regular Nintendo Direct, if I remember correctly. It commands attention. You can fact check me on that, but I will eat a worm if I'm not accurate about that. But that's a game that commands attention by itself. But it's also a game that's done a disservice by Nintendo's inability to properly message these titles, like you're saying, by you not even know if it released. Because this is a game that people should be in the consciousness and people should be aware of. But this storefront that I keep refreshing for a short hike to come out on is just not conducive to messaging. And there's actually an article that went up recently from an indie developer who was heartbroken by the performance of the game on Switch. I'm going to send this to you so you can put it in the description. I think it's an important read.
Yeah.
And it was an interview with Nintendo Life where they just talk about the ways that Nintendo just fails curation on the eShop for indie devs, which I think is too bad and really important. But Red Strings Club's a different game. It's a cyberpunk game. Red Lantern, very exciting.
Yes, those are different. Okay, what else do we have in this? We have a game called Unrailed, which doesn't look fantastic. It kind of looks like a mobile game or something you can play on. But
does it have anything to do with trains?
Yeah, it's a train one.
Yes.
What?
I don't know. I just thought it'd be funny to be excited about trains.
Okay, well, we also have a game called Struggling, which I can't even tell what that is. You're like a little wormy finger guy. That's weird.
I looked to my roommate and said, I hate everything happening on screen right now. And that game was there.
If I find out what the actual gameplay is, it could be something I'm into. Oh, it's coming out in just over a week. That's cool. Also, right after that, Inmost from Chucklefish. That game looks great. It's got that. It's almost like a Octopath. Really cool lighting and color effects and particle effects in this pixelated sort of semi-HD pixelated.
What's the title of this game again? Because I'm forgetting this one. Inmost.
But it looks fantastic.
I'm gonna tell you you're wrong after I see it. Let me see.
And that's coming out in 3 days.
Oh, okay. No, this looked excellent. This is from Chucklefish.
That's what I just said.
It's a wonderfully reliable studio.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely very excited for that.
I don't know. For me, again, it's not necessarily the type of game I would play, but on Chucklefish's name and on the beauty of the art style, unlike Octopath, which is a fucking gross looking game, I actually liked how this looked. I thought it looks compelling. It's compelling. I was compelled by it.
Yeah. I think the final ones, other than Gunner 2, something called She Dreams Elsewhere, which I haven't heard of before. Kind of looks like it's an Undertale knockoff. We're not even gonna fucking beat around the bush.
That's Undertale Persona. That's what I said.
Oh, okay. Well, that concept intrigues me.
I'm working on a game called She Drinks Elsewhere. It's about a horse that has its own trough from the other horses.
Ah, fantastic. Right after that is a game Grindstone, which I think is I think it's also Apple Arcade, but that's coming to Switch.
I've heard that title game before.
Yeah, probably because it's Apple Arcade. But that game, people liked it. I'm not a big fan of sort of those simplistic sort of puzzle game mobile things, but people enjoy it, so that's one that could probably get some attention. And then Goner 2, and I think that's how they ended the sizzle reel. But I mean, here's the thing, and obviously Goose Game after that. Going through this
Do you
and
not have
here,
Zoom open?
no, I don't. Oh, it's up. How much it fucking costs? Holy shit, that's cheap. All right.
Yeah, I'm buying it right now. I've been holding that stuff in front of your fucking eyes for a long time. I'm buying it right now.
How do you refresh?
I just close. I search it by name. Search it by name if you need to.
Yeah, no. So okay. So going through this, after hearing your initial impressions that were pretty lukewarm and thinking about a lot of these games that sort of looked derivative or ones that you weren't particularly interested in, I do think that I was worried that maybe going through it I wouldn't agree, but I think my initial impressions were pretty founded, if you will, not unfounded. They were very founded. I am excited for most of these games. There's a straggling handful that I'm not very interested in, but especially going through and seeing how much cool stuff was in the sizzle reel and recapping it in sort of a snappy format and being reminded of what was there. This was a fantastic presentation full of games that I cannot wait to play. So, man, I'm very, very happy with this. This is one of the best indie world presentations, in my opinion.
I want to tell you something to the opposite effect. My opinions on this kind of catalyzed as we were discussing. I want to do something bold, and I'm going to expound upon this idea at a later date, probably for Nintendo. The Backlog Banter audience will have to go elsewhere. This is like the Grimoire card of the Backlog Banter discussions, a reference that you won't get because you don't play Destiny. I think that this showcase was exploitative. And I think that Nintendo needs to commit to indie games in a material way. I think lip service is one thing. I think a showcase like this is one thing. I think it's another thing entirely to structure your storefront around these games and around putting games out in a manner that makes sense and around giving games the shot they deserve to succeed. And I don't think a showcase like this does that. Because in hindsight, talking about what you just said, there are more games in here than I think I initially thought that seem unique. Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. But I think Nintendo is leveraging the fact that indie developers come to them because Nintendo has an absence of other things that usually draw attention away from them.
Yeah.
Games like this don't succeed so roundly on Xbox and PlayStation because there's other things to compete with them. They're not here. So Nintendo really has an open door to kind of court developers in an immaterial sense. And having a showcase like this, saddling it with with expectations of a Nintendo Direct after the past ones have had things like Cuphead, Cadence, Ori, things like that, in conjunction with the fact that Nintendo is not talking very well to the audience this year, sets us up with expectations. And then when what you get is an array of games that's some look compelling, some look derivative. It seems like a grab bag of a little bit of everything. And then you take games that are, I think, legitimately interesting and important for the medium, like Raji, which come from a place we don't see a lot of, and just throw that in with a bunch of other shit. To me, that feels really like you're just paying lip service to a scene that you should be paying better attention to because they take care of you. Because if the Switch didn't have the indie support it had, the conversation around this device would be much different. It would be much different if this wasn't the indie machine it was.
Yeah.
So it disappoints me to see Nintendo prefer to do the minimum because it doesn't have to be that way. Because the featured page does not have to have Mario Kart Deluxe on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It should.
Honestly, okay. I think we sort of melted down and met in a sort of solid middle ground here. I do think that I'm more excited for a lot of these than you, and I think that's obviously totally
personal preferences. Potato, tomato.
Tomato, potato. Yes, but I do think that you're right. If I wasn't looking at this through the lens of a larger marketing scheme or through how this fits into Nintendo's schedule, I was looking at it more of someone who's played a lot of indie games in my life. Of these games speak to me, and I can't wait to play them. But on the front that this was an exciting presentation to me. I thought that there was a lot of cool games, but I do think that you're right. Is that Nintendo, not the fact that a lot of them are shadow dropping the same day. Again, yeah, I agree that it actually does not show that they're very confident, or they Nintendo doesn't think that they can spread these out and sort of have them hold their own, and that they're probably going to cannibalize, and that's unfortunate. And I unrelated to this presentation, I thought that was a good presentation. The fact that Nintendo's eShop is so butt fucked for really promoting indie games is no, I've never cursed on here before. I think that's an entirely different topic, but I do think it's something to consider. But I don't think it takes away from the fact that I thought this presentation was very interesting.
I still think a lot of the games look derivative, but I got a short hike, and I have a weird sensual nostalgia for DS era 3D polygonal graphics.
So I also have a fun announcement for you, my dear friend. Is I recorded my reaction to this Indie World presentation.
Oh, wow.
And I'm planning on uploading it as our very first reaction thing. I just decided to do it randomly. I'm going to figure out how to size it down and get the video on there, and it'll be fantastic and an extra piece of content. See how it does. See if people like it.
Now that's a shadow drop I'm in.
Boom! Shadow drop of me being excited for a lot of these games, and you can go watch my live and raw dogged reaction to Goose Game multiplayer and to Goner 2, and mentioning the fact that you liked Goner, and I can't wait to talk about Goner 2 with you in that video. And then we didn't really talk about Goner 2, but it's all content. It's all going up on Backlog Banter. We've got planned for this weekend. This is our first video as part of what are we gonna call it? Backlog Banter episode 2, or what the fuck?
Backlog Banter 2 Electric Boogaloo.
No, what the fuck was the term that we used?
You said chapter 2.
Chapter, yes, like Fortnite, yes. Backlog Banter Chapter 2 starts. No, Fortnite. Backlog Banter Chapter 2 starts with an indie presentation.
On camera.
I don't know why I'm burping. I've only eaten French toast today. I don't know why that makes me burp. But
maybe you should fix your diet.
Yeah, less French toast. I agree. But I think that's. I think we had a good discussion.
French toast with other things.
I think they had a good discussion. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me. This was sort of a cobbled together.
Yeah. Thanks for being discussion.
Here. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Oh, I appreciate it.
I'm gonna go play a short hike. Just kidding. I'm gonna play Persona 5 Royal.
The fact that you're getting into that weirds me out a little bit. But you know what? I hope you enjoy it. It's gonna be fun to do a discussion on.
Yeah, we will. We for sure.
No, you won't. All right. Well, I'll see the viewers in another video, and I'll see you in another space and time. Who knows? Bye. Oh my God. I work with a 5-year-old. Look at him. He's popping out his ass. He thinks he's slick. He thinks he's cool.